The glow from my laptop screen cast harsh shadows across the kitchen table as I scrolled through another endless spreadsheet. Numbers never lied. That's what made my job as a forensic accountant both satisfying and soul-crushing. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, while most people were sleeping, I was hunting for financial discrepancies that would make someone's life very uncomfortable. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The front door clicked open, followed by the familiar sound of heels on hardwood and a soft giggle that made my stomach clench. "Felix? You still up, babe?" Naomi's voice carried that particular lilt she got after a few drinks with her work friends. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her blonde hair slightly mussed, lipstick faded, looking like she'd had quite the evening. "Just finishing up the Morrison audit," I said, not looking up from my screen. "How was dinner with the girls?" She kicked off her heels and padded over to the refrigerator. "Oh, you know how it is. Claire and Monica can't stop gossiping about everyone at the office." She grabbed a water bottle and leaned against the counter. "Actually, Ethan ended up joining us for drinks afterward. You remember Ethan, right? My work husband?" There it was again. Work husband. The term that had been grating on my nerves for the past 3 months like fingernails on a chalkboard. Right. The guy who wears loafers without socks and thinks a firm handshake is a personality trait. Naomi laughed, the sound a little too bright. "Don't be mean. He's actually really sweet. He picked up the entire tab tonight. Said it was his treat since I've been helping him with the Henderson account." I finally looked up from my laptop. Naomi was scrolling through her phone, smiling at something on the screen. Her phone was face down on the counter within seconds. "That's generous of him," I said carefully. "Expensive dinner?" "Not too bad. Just that new place downtown, Meridian, the one with the good cocktails." She stretched and yawned. "I'm exhausted. Coming to bed soon?" "In a few minutes." She kissed the top of my head as she passed, her perfume mixing with something else. Cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "Don't stay up too late, number cruncher." I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of the shower starting. My laptop screen had gone dark, reflecting my face back at me. 31 years old, brown hair that refused to cooperate, glasses that had seen better days. Not exactly the type women usually cheated on their husbands with, but apparently not the type they stayed faithful to either. The shower was still running when her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a text preview. "Ethan. Had an amazing time tonight. Can't wait for tomorrow's..." The preview cut off there, but it was enough. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then closed my laptop with a soft click. Numbers never lied, but apparently neither did gut instincts. The next morning, I watched Naomi get ready for work with new eyes. She spent an extra 10 minutes on her makeup, changed her outfit twice, and sprayed on more perfume than usual. "Big day at the office?" I asked, buttering toast with mechanical precision. "Just the usual chaos. The Henderson account is keeping everyone busy." She grabbed her coffee and checked her phone. Again. "Ethan and I have back-to-back meetings all day." "Sounds intense." "You know how it is in event planning. Everything's a crisis until it's not." She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark. "What about you? Any exciting spreadsheets today?" "The Pemberton case, suspected embezzlement, should be fun." "Mm-hmm." She was already distracted, typing something on her phone with the focused intensity of a surgeon. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and really thought about it. 3 months ago, Naomi had started talking about Ethan Shaw constantly. Ethan said this, Ethan did that, Ethan had the funniest story. Then came the work husband jokes, the extended lunch meetings, the evening emergencies that kept her at the office until 9 or 10. I'd chalked it up to work stress. Naomi's job at Premier Events was demanding, and she'd always been social. But the late-night texts, the secretive phone calls, the way she suddenly needed to help Ethan with everything, patterns were emerging that my analytical brain couldn't ignore. At my office downtown, I found it impossible to concentrate on the Pemberton embezzlement case. Instead, I kept thinking about behavioral patterns, about the small lies that added up to bigger deceptions. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," said Jamie Rodriguez, my coworker and closest friend at the firm. She perched on the edge of my desk, her dark hair pulled back in its usual messy bun. "What's eating you?" "Hypothetical question," I said, leaning back in my chair. "If you suspected someone close to you was being dishonest, would you confront them directly or gather evidence first?" Jamie raised an eyebrow. "Are we talking about a client or something more personal?" "Hypothetically personal." "Well, hypothetically, I'd say you're a forensic accountant. Gathering evidence is literally what you do for a living." She studied my face. "This is about Naomi, isn't it?" I didn't answer directly, but Jamie had known me for 5 years. She could read the numbers as well as I could. "Want some advice from someone who's been through this particular audit?" she asked gently. "Document everything, dates, times, inconsistencies. If you're wrong, you'll feel better having checked. If you're right, if I'm right, I'll have proof." Exactly. And Felix, if you need help with anything at all, just ask. That evening, I started paying closer attention. Naomi came home at 9:30, claiming she'd been stuck in traffic after another crisis meeting with Ethan. But when I casually mentioned the traffic report I'd heard on the radio, clear roads all evening, she quickly changed the subject to something else. Her phone buzzed constantly during dinner. Each time, she'd glance at it and smile slightly before turning it face down again. "Popular tonight," I observed. "Just work stuff. You know how it is." But I was starting to know exactly how it was. After Naomi fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing. She'd showered again when she got home, the second shower of the day, which wasn't unusual for her, but the timing felt off. Everything felt off. In the darkness, I made a decision. If Naomi was cheating, I was going to find out. And if she was cheating with Ethan Shaw, well, I'd deal with that when I had proof. Because numbers never lied, and neither did evidence. But people? People lied all the time. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own home. It wasn't hard. Naomi had grown careless, comfortable in her deception. She left her laptop open, her phone unlocked for brief moments, her stories increasingly inconsistent. The breakthrough came on a Thursday evening. Naomi was in the shower and her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. I had maybe 5 minutes before she'd be out. My hands shook slightly as I opened her browser history. Restaurants I'd never been to. A hotel website, the Meridian downtown, the same name as the restaurant she'd mentioned. But this wasn't the restaurant. This was a boutique hotel 6 blocks from her office. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the screen. Browser history, email previews, anything that might be relevant. My heart was hammering so hard, I was sure Naomi would hear it over the shower noise. Then I found the folder. It was buried in her photos, labeled work events, but containing images that definitely weren't corporate headshots. Selfies of Naomi and Ethan at restaurants. Ethan's hand on her waist. Naomi laughing at something off camera, looking at Ethan the way she used to look at me. The shower turned off upstairs. I quickly took photos of everything, closed the laptop, and was back at the kitchen table with my own work when Naomi appeared in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. "You're working late again," she said, opening the refrigerator. "The Pemberton case is getting interesting. Found some creative accounting in their expense reports." Well, don't stay up too late." She grabbed her laptop. "I need to review some client proposals before tomorrow." I watched her settle onto the couch, typing away, probably deleting evidence or planning her next rendezvous. The casual way she lied to my face was almost impressive in its audacity. The next morning, I called in sick and drove to Premier Events office building. I parked across the street with a clear view of the parking garage entrance and waited. At 11:47 a.m., Ethan Shaw's silver BMW pulled into the garage. 20 minutes later, Naomi's red Honda followed. They emerged together at 1:15 p.m., walking close but not touching, heading toward the Meridian Hotel. Naomi was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, that would come later. This was something else. Calculation. The same feeling I got when I found a discrepancy in someone's books and knew I was about to unravel their entire financial life. They returned to the office building at 3:30 p.m., entering separately with a 5-minute gap between arrivals. That evening, Naomi complained about how busy work had been, how she'd barely had time for lunch. "Really?" I said, cutting into my steak with surgical precision. "That's rough. What did you end up eating?" "Just a salad at my desk, nothing exciting." I nodded and took another bite. The meat tasted like cardboard, but I chewed methodically, thinking about hotel room service menus and the lipstick I'd seen smudged on Ethan's collar when they'd emerged from the Meridian. "How's the Pemberton case going?" Naomi asked, probably trying to shift attention away from her own fictional day. "Oh, it's fascinating. You know what's interesting about embezzlers? They always think they're smarter than the people investigating them. They get comfortable, sloppy, leave trails everywhere." Naomi's fork paused halfway to her mouth. That's terrible. How can people be so dishonest?" I looked directly at her. I have no idea. After dinner, I went to my home office and printed out every photo I'd taken, every screenshot, every piece of evidence. I organized it all in a folder, creating a timeline that would make any prosecutor proud. Then I opened a new document on my computer and started typing. The Naomi Bell investigation, a comprehensive report. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her how a forensic accountant played them. Because unlike her creative storytelling, my version would be backed up with facts, dates, and photographic evidence. And unlike her affair, my revenge would be perfectly legal. I spent the weekend planning my approach with the same methodical precision I used to trace financial fraud. The key was patience. Rushing would only give them a chance to cover their tracks or spin the narrative in their favor. Monday morning, I stopped at a drugstore and bought a greeting card. Nothing fancy, just a simple thank you card with a generic message inside. At the office, I wrote a brief note in my neatest handwriting. "Ethan, thanks for taking such good care of Naomi. Your attention to detail doesn't go unnoticed. Felix." I slipped in a $50 Starbucks gift card and mailed it to Premier Events, addressed to Ethan Shaw. "What are you smirking about?" Jamie asked, appearing at my cubicle with 2 cups of coffee. "Just solving a problem," I said, sealing the envelope. "The Pemberton case?" "A different kind of embezzlement." Jamie set down my coffee and studied my face. "Felix, whatever you're planning, just be smart about it, okay? Don't do anything that could come back to bite you. Don't worry, I'm very good at covering my tracks." That evening, I implemented Phase 2. While Naomi was upstairs doing her elaborate nighttime skincare routine, I used her laptop to send an anonymous email to Premier Events' HR department. Nothing accusatory, just a concerned employee reporting inappropriate workplace conduct and unprofessional relationships that might affect company morale. I attached a few of the milder text exchanges, enough to show the favoritism and lack of professionalism, but nothing overtly personal. Let HR draw their own conclusions. Wednesday morning, Naomi's phone rang during breakfast. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned. "It's work. I should take this." She stepped into the living room, but I could still hear her side of the conversation. "What? No, When? Today. But I don't understand what this is about." She returned to the kitchen looking pale and confused. "Everything okay?" I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. "HR wants to see me this morning. They wouldn't say why." She was staring at her phone like it might provide answers. "This is so weird. I wonder if it's about the Henderson account." "I'm sure it's nothing serious. Maybe just a routine check-in." But we both knew HR didn't call people in for routine check-ins. I drove to work with a satisfied feeling in my chest. The first domino had fallen. At lunch, I took a walk to the Ledger, a dive bar 3 blocks from my office that served as an unofficial networking hub for the downtown business crowd. The kind of place where administrative assistants gossiped with accountants and rumors spread faster than wildfire. I ordered a beer and struck up a conversation with Linda, a secretary from Premier Events, who I'd met at a few industry mixers. "How's business?" I asked casually. "Oh, you know how it is. Always some drama." She leaned in conspiratorially. "Actually, there's some serious stuff going down today. HR called in 2 people for some kind of investigation. Nobody knows what it's about, but there are rumors." "Sounds juicy." "Well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but—" She glanced around and lowered her voice. "It involves Naomi Bell and Ethan Shaw. You know, from the events team? Apparently someone reported them for inappropriate conduct." I made sure to look appropriately shocked. "No way. Naomi Bell? I think I've met her at company events. Blonde, really put together." "That's her. And honestly, this doesn't surprise me at all. Everyone's been talking about how close she and Ethan have gotten. Always having these private meetings, going to lunch together, staying late at the office." Linda shook her head. "I mean, she's married, right? To some accountant guy?" "Yeah, I think so. That's terrible. The worst part is how obvious they've been about it. Like, we all have eyes, you know? But I guess someone finally decided to do something about it." I finished my beer and left Linda to spread the gossip to the next person who'd listen. By evening, half the downtown business district would know that Naomi Bell and Ethan Shaw were under investigation for inappropriate workplace conduct. When I got home, Naomi was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a shell-shocked expression. "How was your day?" I asked, hanging up my jacket. "Horrible. Absolutely horrible." She took a large sip of wine. HR grilled me for 2 hours about my relationship with Ethan. Someone sent them screenshots of our text messages and claimed we were having an inappropriate relationship. I sat down across from her, arranging my face into what I hoped looked like concerned confusion. "That's crazy. Who would do something like that?" "I have no idea. But Felix, you have to believe me. There's nothing inappropriate going on. Ethan and I are just colleagues. We work closely together, sure, but that's it." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her palm was sweaty, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. "Of course I believe you," I said, giving her hand what I hoped was a reassuring squeeze. "You're the most professional person I know. HR will figure out that this is just some kind of misunderstanding." "I hope so. They suspended both of us pending a full investigation. Suspended, Felix. I've never even had a write-up before." "I'm sure it'll blow over quickly. These things usually do." But even as I said it, I was already planning phase 3. Because this was just the beginning, and Naomi had no idea how thorough a forensic accountant could be when he set his mind to destroying someone's life. The numbers were finally starting to add up in my favor. The next few days were beautiful to watch. Naomi tried to maintain her normal routine, but the stress was eating her alive. She barely slept, picked at her food, and jumped every time her phone rang. Meanwhile, I was having the most productive week of my career. The Pemberton embezzlement case was practically solving itself, and I had energy to spare for my personal project. Thursday evening, I met Jamie for drinks at the Ledger. She'd been asking questions about my improved mood, and I figured it was time to bring her into the loop, partially at least. "So," she said, settling into our usual booth with 2 beers, Are you going to tell me what's really going on, or do I have to guess? Naomi's having an affair, I said simply. Jamie's eyes widened. Felix, I'm so sorry. Are you sure? Completely sure. Photos, hotel receipts, the works. She's been sleeping with her coworker for at least 3 months. God, that's awful. What are you going to do? I took a sip of my beer and smiled. I'm handling it. What does that mean exactly? Let's just say that Naomi and her boyfriend are having a very bad week at work. Jamie stared at me. Felix, please tell me you didn't what? Report inappropriate workplace conduct to their HR department? Absolutely I did. It's the responsible thing to do. And that's it? You're just going to let HR handle it? I shrugged. HR is just the beginning. See, the thing about cheaters is that they build their whole lives on lies. And when you start pulling at one thread, everything else unravels pretty quickly. As if on cue, Linda from Premier Events appeared at our table. She'd clearly had a few drinks already and was in full gossip mode. Felix, I was hoping I'd see you here. She squeezed into the booth next to Jamie. Remember what we talked about the other day? About Naomi Bell? The inappropriate conduct thing? Oh, it's so much worse than that. I heard from someone in HR that they found hotel receipts, restaurant bills, all kinds of evidence. Apparently they've been having full-blown affair for months, using company credit cards to pay for their little rendezvous. I made sure to look appropriately scandalized. That's terrible. Her poor husband. I know, right? And the worst part is how everyone's talking about it now. Like, the whole office knows. Someone even posted about it on the company message board before IT took it down. Jamie was staring at me with growing understanding and what might have been horror. Well, I said, I guess the truth has a way of coming out. Linda nodded enthusiastically. Oh, absolutely. And between you and me, good riddance. Naomi always acted like she was better than everyone else. Miss Perfect with her fancy clothes and her fake smile. Now everyone knows what she really is. After Linda stumbled off to spread her poison elsewhere, Jamie leaned across the table. Felix, what exactly did you do? I told you. I reported inappropriate conduct. Bullshit. You orchestrated this whole thing, didn't you? The HR investigation, the gossip, all of it. I met her eyes steadily. Naomi made her choices. I'm just making sure there are consequences. This is insane. You're destroying her career over an affair. She destroyed our marriage over an affair. I'm just evening the score. Jamie shook her head. This isn't you, Felix. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel. You're right. Normally I'm not. But apparently, being betrayed by the person you love most in the world brings out new sides of your personality. I finished my beer and stood up. Don't worry, Jamie. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just redistributing the consequences more fairly. At home, Naomi was pacing the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. Mom, I don't know what to do. Everyone at work is treating me like a pariah. Claire and Monica won't even return my calls. She noticed me and lowered her voice. I have to go. Felix just got home. She hung up and turned to me with red-rimmed eyes. This is getting out of control, she said. The rumors are spreading everywhere. People are saying horrible things about me, about Ethan. Someone even sent an anonymous email to my entire department with screenshots of our text messages. That's awful, I said, loosening my tie. Any idea who might have done it? No, but I'm starting to think someone has it out for me. This feels personal, Felix, like someone is deliberately trying to destroy my reputation. I walked over and put my arms around her, feeling her trembling against my chest. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer, I suggested. If someone's harassing you, there might be legal options. I can't afford a lawyer. Especially not if I lose my job over this. She pulled back and looked at me desperately. Felix, you believe me, right? You know I would never cheat on you? I looked into her lying eyes and smiled. Of course I believe you, honey. We'll get through this together. But even as I said it, I was already planning the next phase, because Naomi had no idea how far I was willing to go or how much evidence I still had in reserve. The spiral was just getting started. Friday afternoon, Ethan Shaw made his first mistake. He cornered me in the parking garage beneath my office building, apparently having decided that intimidation was his best strategy. "You're Felix, right? Naomi's husband?" He was trying to project confidence, but I could see the desperation around his eyes. Up close, he looked like exactly what he was, a mediocre salesman in an expensive suit, the kind of guy who peaked in college and never got over it. "That's right, and you must be Ethan, the work husband." His jaw tightened. "We need to talk." "Do we? About what?" "About this bullshit investigation, about the rumors, about whoever's been spreading lies about me and Naomi." I leaned against my car, genuinely curious about where he was going with this. "What makes you think I'd know anything about that?" "Because you're her husband, and this whole thing started right after someone sent me that weird thank you card, the one signed with your name." "Oh, that. I thought it was only polite to acknowledge how much time and attention you've been giving my wife. I mean, all those late dinners, the hotel visits, the intimate text messages. It's really above and beyond what most colleagues would do." The color drained from his face. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken. Ethan and Naomi leaving the Meridian Hotel, his hand on the small of her back. "Because I'm pretty sure I know exactly what I'm talking about." He lunged for my phone, but I was expecting it. I stepped aside, and he stumbled forward, catching himself against the concrete wall. "Here's the thing, Ethan. I'm a forensic accountant. I find things that people try to hide. I document them. I build cases. And right now, I have enough evidence of your affair to bury both of you." "You bastard! You're the one who's been doing this. The HR complaint, the rumors, all of it." "Prove it." He straightened up, trying to regain his composure. "I could report you for harassment, for stalking." "Go ahead. I'm sure HR would love to hear your explanation for why you think I'm harassing you. I'm sure they'd be very interested in all the evidence I'd have to present in my defense." I walked around to my car door, then paused. "Oh, and Ethan? That's a nice car you've got there. BMW, right? Shame about the paint job." I dragged my key along the side of his car in one smooth motion, leaving a deep scratch from the front door to the rear bumper. "You psychotic piece of shit." He started toward me, but I was already in my car with the doors locked. I rolled down the window. "Have a great weekend, Ethan. Give my regards to Naomi." As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, standing next to his scratched BMW, his face red with rage and impotence. That evening, Naomi was unusually quiet during dinner. She kept checking her phone, but it wasn't buzzing as much as usual. "Ethan's not texting as much tonight," I observed. She looked up sharply. "What?" "Your phone. It's been pretty quiet. Usually, Ethan's messaging you constantly during dinner." "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. Your work husband, the guy you've been having an affair with for the past 3 months. The fork fell from her hand and clattered against her plate. "Felix, what are you—" "The Meridian Hotel. Room 412. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, sometimes Friday mornings when you tell me you're going to yoga." I set down my own fork and looked at her calmly. "Should I continue?" Her face went through several different expressions: shock, fear, calculation, and finally, defiance. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to make sure that when your life fell apart, I had a front row seat." "You did this. The HR investigation, the rumors, everything. You destroyed my career because you were jealous." "I destroyed your career because you destroyed our marriage. The jealousy was just a bonus." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're sick, Felix. This is psychotic behavior." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, This is justice. You made a choice to betray me, to lie to me, to humiliate me. I'm just making sure the consequences are distributed fairly. I want a divorce. Perfect. I'll make sure my lawyer gets copies of all the evidence. Hotel receipts, text messages, photos, the works. Should make the asset division pretty straightforward. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. I don't even recognize you. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. Naomi grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'm staying at Claire's tonight. Good luck with that. I heard Claire's been pretty busy spreading rumors about you around town. Apparently, she's not as good a friend as you thought. The door slammed behind her, rattling the windows. I sat alone at the dinner table, looking at our half-eaten meal, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The confrontation was over. Now came the really fun part. The weekend passed quietly. Naomi didn't come home, and I used the time to prepare for the final phase of my plan. I'd learned through Linda's gossip network that Premier Events was having their annual client appreciation party on Monday evening, a rooftop affair at one of the downtown hotels, with all the major players in attendance, including, presumably, Naomi and Ethan, assuming they still had jobs by then. Monday morning, I called Jamie. I need a favor, I said. Felix, I'm worried about you. This whole revenge thing. One last favor, and then it's over. I promise. She sighed. What do you need? I need you to be my date to a party tonight. What kind of party? The kind where Naomi and Ethan are going to have a very public reckoning. Felix! Jamie, they tried to frame me as an abusive husband to save their own reputations. I have recordings of them planning it. This isn't just about the affair anymore. They're actively trying to destroy my life to cover their tracks. There was a long silence. Recordings? I bugged Naomi's phone. Completely legal, since it's on my family plan and I pay the bill. Want to hear them planning to tell HR that I've been emotionally abusive? That I'm stalking them? That they're afraid for their safety? Jesus Christ. So yes, I'm going to end this tonight. Publicly. Definitively. And I need you there as my witness. Another pause. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell the truth. All of it, with evidence. The Premier Events party was held on the rooftop of the Meridian Hotel, the same hotel where Naomi and Ethan had been conducting their affair. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jamie and I arrived fashionably late, around 8:30. The party was in full swing, with maybe 60 people scattered across the rooftop terrace. String lights provided ambient lighting, and the city skyline glittered in the background. I spotted Naomi immediately. She was wearing a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before, standing near the bar with Claire and Monica. She looked tired, but was clearly trying to project confidence. Ethan was on the opposite side of the terrace, nursing a whiskey and talking to a group of men in expensive suits. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. There they are, I murmured to Jamie. Felix, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment Naomi decided to cheat. I'm just choosing how the story ends. I made my way to the bar, ordered 2 drinks, and waited. The plan was simple. Let them make the first move. I didn't have to wait long. Naomi appeared at my elbow, her face a mask of controlled fury. What the hell are you doing here? Having a drink. Nice party. Very classy venue. You must have a lot of good memories here. You need to leave, now. Actually, I think I'll stay. I'm having a fascinating conversation with some of your colleagues about workplace ethics. Her eyes narrowed. If you cause a scene, I'll call security. Go ahead. I'm sure they'd be very interested in the recordings I have of you and Ethan planning to falsely accuse me of domestic abuse. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played a brief snippet of audio, Naomi's voice clear as day. We need to make Felix look like the bad guy here. If we say he's been emotionally abusive, controlling, maybe even violent. How did you... Like I said, I'm very good at my job. Ethan had noticed our conversation and was making his way over, looking grim. "Problem here?" he asked, putting a possessive hand on Naomi's shoulder. "Just having a chat with my wife about her extracurricular activities," I said pleasantly. "You need to back off, man. This harassment has gone far enough." "Harassment? Is that what we're calling it?" I looked around the party, noting how many people were starting to pay attention to our conversation. "Because I'd call it accountability." "You're a sick bastard," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Naomi told me how you've been treating her. The controlling behavior, the threats. Did she also tell you about the hotel receipts, the text messages, the photos I have of you two leaving room 412? Several nearby conversations had stopped. People were starting to stare. Ethan's face flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I pulled out my phone again and connected it to the party's Bluetooth sound system, a trick Jamie had taught me earlier. The hotel's AV setup was designed for presentations, and it only took a moment to sync up. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, raising my voice slightly, "I'd like to share something with you all." "Felix, don't," Naomi hissed, but it was too late. The audio began playing through the speakers scattered around the terrace. Naomi and Ethan's voices, crystal clear, discussing their plan to frame me as an abusive husband. "We need to make Felix look unstable," Ethan's voice said. "Dangerous, even, if we can convince HR that he's been threatening us." "I can say he's been following me," Naomi's voice replied. "That he's been checking my phone, my email. Classic abuser behavior." The party had gone completely silent. 60 pairs of eyes were staring at Naomi and Ethan, who looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. I let the recording play for another 30 seconds, then turned it off. "For context," I announced to the crowd, "these are the two employees who are currently under investigation for having an affair and misusing company resources. This recording was made yesterday, when they were planning to make false accusations against me to save their careers." Ethan lunged at me, but I was ready for it. I stepped aside, and he stumbled forward, knocking over a table of drinks. The crash echoed across the silent terrace. "Security!" someone shouted, but the damage was already done. Naomi was crying, her carefully constructed facade finally cracking. Ethan was on the ground, covered in spilled cocktails, looking like the pathetic middle-aged man he really was. I looked around at the shocked faces of their colleagues, their friends, their professional network. "The numbers don't lie," I said quietly, "and neither do the receipts." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Security escorted Ethan out of the party after he tried to attack me a second time. Naomi fled to the bathroom and didn't come back. By the time Jamie and I left an hour later, the story was already spreading through social media. Tuesday morning, I received a call from Linda at Premier Events. "Felix? Oh my God, everyone's talking about last night. Is it true? The recordings, the affair, all of it?" "Unfortunately, yes. This is insane. HR fired both of them this morning, effective immediately. And apparently, Ethan's wife found out about everything and kicked him out. He's staying at some motel on the highway. That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" "Felix, you destroyed them. Completely. Naomi's career in this city is over. No event planning company will touch her after this." "Actions have consequences, Linda. They made their choices." That evening, I was sitting in my home office when Naomi appeared in the doorway. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past week, hollow-eyed, pale, wearing the same clothes she'd had on at the party. "I came to get my things," she said quietly. "They're in boxes by the front door. I took the liberty of packing for you." She stared at me for a long moment. "You really did it. You destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything. I just made sure the truth came out." "The truth?" She laughed bitterly. "The truth is that I made a mistake. One stupid mistake, and you turned it into a nuclear bomb. One mistake? Naomi, you had a 3-month affair. You lied to me every single day. You used our credit cards to pay for hotel rooms. You planned to falsely accuse me of domestic abuse to save your career. Which part of that was one mistake? She had no answer for that. Where are you going to go? I asked. My sister's, in Portland, at least until I can figure out what to do next. And Ethan? Ethan? She shook her head. Ethan won't even return my calls. Turns out he's not so interested in our relationship when it's not secret anymore. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. For what it's worth, she said, I never meant for it to happen. It just did. I know, but intent doesn't really matter when it comes to consequences. She nodded and turned to leave, then paused. You know what the worst part is? I actually convinced myself that you'd never find out, that you were too trusting, too focused on your work to notice. That was your mistake. You forgot that I make a living finding things people try to hide. Yeah, I forgot who I was married to. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet house, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. Photos on the walls, furniture we'd picked out together, wedding gifts we'd never used. I should have felt guilty, remorseful, some kind of regret for the nuclear option I'd chosen. Instead, I felt satisfied, complete, like an equation that had finally been solved. Wednesday morning, I was back at my desk, working on the Pemberton embezzlement case with renewed focus. Jamie appeared with coffee and a concerned expression. How are you doing? She asked. Better than I've felt in months. Felix, what you did, it was pretty extreme. Was it? They tried to destroy my reputation to save theirs. They were planning to accuse me of domestic abuse. I just made sure the truth came out first. But now they're both unemployed, divorced, and blacklisted in their industry. Yes, they are. And you're okay with that? I looked up from my spreadsheet. Jamie, if someone embezzles money from their company, what happens to them? They get fired, sometimes prosecuted. Right, because actions have consequences. Naomi and Ethan embezzled trust, honesty, and fidelity. Why should the consequences be any different? She studied my face for a long moment. You're not the same person you were a month ago. No, I'm not. A month ago, I was naive enough to believe that people were fundamentally honest. Now I know better. That evening, I went to the Ledger for a celebratory drink. The bar was buzzing with conversation about the Premier Events scandal. Linda was holding court at a corner table, regaling anyone who'd listen with the details of the rooftop confrontation. I ordered a whiskey and raised it in a silent toast to the mirror behind the bar. To the numbers, I said quietly. They never lie. My reflection looked back at me. A little older, a little harder, but definitely wiser. I'd learned something important about myself over the past month. When pushed far enough, I was capable of things I'd never imagined. Naomi had gambled that I'd never find out about her affair. When that failed, she'd gambled that I'd be too weak or too forgiving to do anything about it. When that failed, she'd gambled that she could spin the narrative in her favor and make me the villain. She'd lost every bet, because the thing about forensic accounting is that it teaches you to see patterns, to follow trails, and to never stop digging until you find the truth. And once you find the truth, you document it, preserve it, and present it in a way that can't be disputed or dismissed. I'd applied those same skills to my marriage, and the results had been devastating. As I finished my drink, I thought about Naomi, probably crying in her sister's spare bedroom in Portland. I thought about Ethan, alone in his highway motel, trying to figure out how to rebuild his life from scratch. I should have felt guilty about their suffering. Instead, I felt like the books had finally been balanced.